Hello every folks, and welcome to a little bit of a tricky thing. So I see a lot of comments come up about this fight in particular, namely the Duel, aka the Wii graph of this particular game. So the funny part is they actually did the Wii graph fight better before they did the Wii graph fight. And I know that like this particular one, I swear I saw a very angry review come out a while ago over like, oh man, I hated this in FFT, how dare they do it first here. Anyway, point being, it's not actually as hard as it seems. In fact, there's a lot of ways around this that are particularly funny. So, first and foremost, if you are in a position where, for example, you are not confident whatsoever in Denim's abilities or your ability to cheese the crap out of this thing, you can always just make it a normal fight. I'm always shocked that this doesn't come up, but yes, just hit the button that says don't make it a duel. But let's go ahead and select the duel option. Funny that. Anyway. Totally going to use the sword for this. So, here's the thing. Here is the standard experience and why exactly folks have such difficulty with this fight in particular. Sorry if there was a little bit of buzzing from the microphone. It got stuck in my ear in a weird way and I had to adjust it. Okay, so we have Leonard. He is one of your first cases of a stacked boss, namely a guy that comes in with a bunch of cards, and he is a particularly devious one, because if we take a look at his stuff right here, that is 2 Fizz Ups, 2 MP Regenerations, aka this MFer is going to be spamming Rendingale the entire fight. So that's a bit of a hard time. If you happen to be running something along the lines of a Phalanx, he is going to be spamming Vile Wound the whole fight. So he is a devious little a-hole. So let's go ahead and take a look at the standard experience and why you shouldn't charge this guy head on. So, you know, hoity-doity-doy, I'm going to go collect some cards, I'm going to go fight this guy, we're going to do a fair fight, we're going to stand right here, we're going to do a whole big dramatic duel in the center of the thing, and oh dear, I do no damage to this guy because he's a knight, he is several levels higher, and he has now thoroughly cleaved my ass in half. Okay, so that's, we can go ahead and do some damage with a finisher, and we can go ahead and take a little bit of a heal here. But either way, we see that we are now in a position where he is once again going to use the second finisher, and then our existence is no. So, here's what we do. Your first initial reaction might be, I have to sit here and wait for the right Fizz cards to spawn, and I will match his cards. No. So your problem in that fight isn't your offense. Offense is rarely the problem. The problem is that you cannot take his hits. So like I mentioned earlier, he is a interesting devious case in that if you made a defensive build, he's got poison, which you cannot be immune to this time around. So he'll essentially just watch you slowly bleed to death. Whereas if you are a low defense build, he will simply DPS you down. So if you choose to do the duel, you want to be tricky. So like right here, I could go for a knight, could go for Phalanx, could attempt to get his resistance high enough, or not his resistance, but his mind high enough that he'd be able to simply avoid the poison. But that is going to be impractical. It's not something that we can set up in this particular fight. So let's look at our other options. Technically speaking, we could go for a quick shot archer type of situation. Actually, we're going to go down the list just to kind of cover all of your different options to give you an idea of what you're potentially working with. This is a save file that I made in particular to have the lowest common denominator of whatever you might have available. Namely, this was a no shop run, so I've never bought a particular item. This is just surviving off of items that have been picked up along the way, and most of them have been used along the way. So this save file has practically nothing to work with. If it has anything in Plenitude, you couldn't you couldn't possibly make it this far without having this stuff in Plenitude. Namely, the strategy we're going to be using for this one is going to be to cheese the ninja and how the AI works, because there's really no way you could have avoided having it by this point. So, if you, for example, went for a warrior denim, simply Mighty Strike and running away will actually do the job in a lot of cases. You simply run forward, Mighty Strike him off. What you really want to do is set up a Mighty Strike by just simply running away, head to the top of the map, essentially use Mighty Strike as a spacing move, and run. You then heal up with whatever healing items you had available, but this is not super practical, just due to the fact that that Mighty Strike takes a long time to hit. Okay, so not ideal. What if you have an archer? Well, you could use Tremendous Shot to do the same thing, but you're basically doing next to no damage unless you knock him off a cliff or use a finisher. Okay, not ideal, plus their movement is fairly low. What about wizards? Same problem. Can do damage, low everything, and also this guy's got a lot of debuff resistances, so that's not going to work. Cleric. Good luck with that. Rune Fencer can heal and is also fairly agile, plus also might be able to do some more defensive builds. Could potentially outlast him, but it's unlikely because their defenses are on the low side. Phalanx off of a knight might help them survive. But again, poison, bit of a problem. Terror Knight, I don't believe he can, I think he's got Deathproof, so that's not going to work right there. You might be able to HP leech stall him until he dies, though. Berserker is what we're doing right here, and you will not be able to match his power whatsoever. By this point, if you're running into it for the very first time, you will not be able to, theoretically, you could go into Farampa well ahead of time, collect a bunch of strength up cards, and you might be able to make yourself marginally more powerful here, but you're going to need well over 100 strength cards to be able to really kind of overcome this difference. Swordmaster actually is fantastic for this one, or at least would be in theory. If you have a way, like if you knock him into a thing that removes his cards, then he simply would be able to preempt. However, they also similarly would get two-shot by the Ren and Gale, so unfortunately, even in the ultimate 1v1 scenario, the 1v1 specialist is not going to do the job. Dragoon, okay then. But we're going to go ahead and go for the ninja here. Simply because the other two should be fairly obvious. But just so you know, there is a very simple thing that you can do. Actually, there's a few things that you can do. So what we want to do is go ahead and slap on some Balder stuff right here, get our intelligence reasonably high, get that stuff going right there. We're going to go ahead and put a short bow on, and we're going to go ahead and put a few skills here. So we want Steel Stance just in case, we want Smoke Screen just in case, we want to have Concentration just in case, and then we want to have HP up again just in case. Now, by this point, you can't have avoided getting any of your ninja type magic stuff, and in particular, we're going to go for Chimera here. Having a bonus is not a downside. He is a water element, so switching over to a lightning charm is going to be helpful. So there we go. We're going to go ahead and go for something like this. I think I actually have a Boulder Bow, don't I? I mean, it's going to give us a decent amount of extra intelligence, so we reasonably might as well. We're going to leave off the pants for the time being, A, because it's funny, and B, because it gives us a little bit of extra speed. So over here we have a guy that is essentially going to be taking advantage of everything that they possibly can in this fight. So, like I said, this is a no-shop run, so they don't have the bonuses that this guy has in terms of their equipment. So as we see right here, he is coming in at a higher level. He comes in fully prepared for the fight, and he will more or less be able to spam finishers the entire time. Now, this isn't the only way to do this, but to my mind, this is going to be the most consistent for people to replicate right off the bat. So what is it that makes this guy good? It's like the cards, sure, that give him a little like finisher spamming gimmick, but what actually makes him scary is right here. He has access to Swift Foot and Jump. In the original PSP version, if you're wondering why he comes in with upgraded equipment this time, it was as simple as putting a barricade or a rampart shadow right here and shield bashing him in. At that point, he could literally do nothing. He has no heals, he has no attacks. He simply sits there and takes hits till he dies. It was that simple, which was hilarious, but not exactly good in terms of gameplay challenge. Now, that being said, by the way, if you ever want to see this in action, I'll see if I remember to put a link in the video here to the what the hell was that? The suboptimal challenge, in which I basically just barricaded him in, barricaded Denim in, set it on autopilot, and then just left him firing a bowgun at him for several hours. So it was just a funny time. Anyway, long story short, that's how you end up getting your crossbow ranks very easily in a run that you can't actually do very much. All right, so what we've done here is I've forgotten to put Benum on, unfortunately. The original plan here was actually to put Benum so that you have a bit of a backup plan. But there's a few ways to set this up. For one thing, I would usually recommend just putting a shield right here. Gives you the option to knock him backwards, as well as Benum, which I forgot to take off of Fulkert because I was too busy talking. But if he were to ever get close to you, this essentially would mean that he has a 50% chance not to act, and additionally you have a way to knock him backwards and run away, because again, remember, he's got upgraded movement, meaning that he can match the ninja's default movement. If you are not doing a weird challenge run without chops, you can simply upgrade any of your leg slot items to just give you enough movement to entirely avoid this to begin with. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to move one tile over here, and we are essentially going to take very fast actions. We're not going to rely on cards, we're not going to rely on anything else. We are going to simply put him in a position where he wants to get close and he tries to corner us in. See, he is a unit with Rampart Aura. He is going to attempt to close us in with Rampart Aura. But if we happen to be faster than him, it's going to be difficult for him to do that. So, for example, we see that, we're reasonably beating him on speed, so we'll just go ahead and attack him real quick, do our Chimera, do a little bit of a plink damage, and we'll go ahead and move over here. And actually, we just noticed that we're actually still beating him on speed, even if we go here, so if we wanted to wait, we could just go ahead and wait. But either way, we're just going to kind of run back and forth, because he's going to continue trying to trap us in. See, he doesn't want to run down there, because he kind of sees it as a disadvantage. But being a faster unit here, we're not really losing that much in terms of our movement cost by running up and down this little gap. However, being a heavier unit, for whatever reason, I believe I'm assuming the AI sees this as, they're going to lose a tiny bit for vertical movement. I don't know what the actual calculation is for losing tiles on vertical movement, but, either darn way, for whatever reason, he will gladly just run back and forth, attempting repeatedly to corner us. Due to the fact that, again, he is a heavy, very defensive unit, he will continue doing this. I would not recommend bothering to go after any magic cards or whatever else. Whatever. If you get a crit, you get a crit. If a card lands somewhere between you, then go for it. But, generally speaking, I would recommend just repeating the same action over and over just to avoid getting him out of this loop. But I've tested this consistently. This works every time. Honestly, you don't even need the elemental advantage. Generally speaking, as long as you're not using Fire Snake, you're still going to be doing some damage to him. If you've got better attack options, go for it. But the thing with ninja stuff is that it's very fast to deploy. So basically all ninja attacks, like ninja magic, is a little bit faster than all other magic types to cast. Ninjas themselves have very quick recovery time, and while their defense is nearly non-existent, this does allow them to employ tricky strategies like this. So yeah, we can just keep repeating this over and over and over until he's eventually dead. Now, interestingly enough, you might be thinking, wait, what about a weapon skill? Shouldn't you be using that to help get around his defenses a little bit better? And no. Interestingly, ninja summons do not actually check weapon attack. They seem to kind of function like multi-hitters back in the PSP version, namely that they seem to have a higher initial penetration, but don't seem to actually bother scaling very much. So they're going to have a fairly flat value most of the time. So you can just sit here spamming the same thing over and over, just, completely ignoring any additional benefits. If you were to pick up a card along the way, like a Magic Up card, sure, I would make this go a little bit faster. But this is already very quick to deploy, this is very consistent, and it'll sort out your Lenar problem very easily. Now, in terms of how other classes can manage this, there is a possibility to get this done with almost any unit. It's just going to be a little bit more tricky, but generally, due to the fact that he's a lot more agile this time around, you're going to want to abuse this cliff. He cannot jump up it. So if you can find a consistent way to get him stuck behind this statue right here, so for example, if you were to take this tile, he's over here, this forces him to take some additional movement around this statue, and then you get him right here, you can simply just shield bash him off. Due to the fact that this, I believe shield bashes are partially checking footing for whether you knock the unit back or not. So this seems to consistently knock them off the ledge here. At the same time, you also theoretically could just break the statue and wait for him to come around this corner, stand right here, and then repeatedly shield bash him off right here. So this actually is a nice little window right here as well. But again, this is all going to be kind of situational. For the archer, actually, this tile would be ideal, since he can still make that jump right there in this version. So for the archer, if you can consistently put him in a position where he's coming up right here, you might be able to abuse the ledges there. If you were to use the archer strategy, something like for example, a boulder bow with a tremendous shot is going to be ideal, since short bows are dramatically faster than long bows. Don't go for a longbow strategy in this particular fight. I would kind of hope it'd be obvious. So for something like a berserker, warrior, whatever else, just being able to knock them off here with a tremendous might work. Shield bashes will work for pretty much everybody. But again, this is going to be by far the most consistent way to do it. The other caster types, if you have a movement boosting item, it could work if you pick up a crit card, but I really, really wouldn't recommend it. At that point, they kind of want to use stun defensively to have any chance of surviving. It's just that he can outspeed them very easily. So that will be about that. Hopefully this helps you all out, and if you happen to want to see any weirder approaches to this, do let me know. And yeah, aside from that, you guys have a good one. Take care, and I will see you then. Actually, let's go ahead and finish this off real quick, just because it's funny. Go ahead and move you right over here. Okay, and there we go. Y'all have a good one. Take care. I mean, honestly, I'd be a little bit more worried about the wiring in this place, but okay.